Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the Ultimate Cup event for the Digimon card game that was run during the Gen Con weekend last weekend. And a couple things. First, if you guys didn't see my One Piece video yesterday, welcome to the new intro. Big thanks to Marco, our TCG mana, as well as Zachary Wilson for the implementation of that, for the animation and the songs respectively. I think it came out really great, really happy for that. But also, this is a bit of an interesting event too. I did want to make this video separately from the Gen Con one I made for all of the BT13 regional, since it was kind of a different rule set for that, and I meant for this video to come out earlier, it just didn't pan out. So sorry for a little bit of lateness for this event, this breakdown, but we have it here for you guys today. So it was 123 players, it was online, it was 6 rounds of Swiss best of 3, and it did have the Ultimate Cup restrictions of having everything has to share a color. So there's some decks that are just completely invalidated by this, like Crossheart, Hunters, as well as like Royal Knights can't be played for this, and then there's other decks that don't even see the restriction based on kind of how good they already are. So also kind of a point is that like the X antibody decks don't do as well, specifically because X antibody is a white card and everything else is usually non-white, so that's something for it, and that's kind of the idea for it. So obviously a lot of monocolored decks that already exist, for example Blue Flare would be doing pretty good, but I'd be really surprised to see this chart and think it was not fake. A couple weeks ago I was saying like, oh, Mirage doing super well, getting half of the spots in this top 16, a deck that sees some tops in like the traditional BT13 format, but not anything that I would say warranted for like a half of a top 16 like we see this one, including first place with Chi on that first place. So we're gonna go talk about these decks and my thoughts about it. I will say up front too, it is interesting to see that there weren't any green in this top 16. I know, like, traditionally, we were looking at the Ultimate Cup format back in June when it was BT12, and I don't think EX4 was part of it, but the fact, like, Bloom Lord was really popular for that. I think Blue Flare was moderately popular, especially since I do think it has a pretty good matchup against the Bloom Lord at times, since they do kind of go wide on board. But also Machinedramon was pretty rampant for that one, too, and some versions of Black War Gray, just obviously not as much protection for it. But in general, I'd say this format is a little bit slower, so you do have time to kind of set up your plays a little bit more, as well as get into like you don't get OTK'd as much, which is interesting, which also means like Machinedramon gets to set up a little bit, and then also we're talking about it later, Belphemon did get a top at 16th, but I'm surprised that there weren't any Beelzebub, since that is also kind of a mono purple deck that has been doing moderately well, obviously less so in BT13 than BT12, but still a very, very strong deck. So we're going to go into that. We're going to start off with our first place list. This is Chi's list for Mirage, and this is a deck that has been getting a little bit of support in the last couple sets, specifically in getting the Mirage Galgamon in BT11, which is honestly a very solid card. I do like what this card does. The fact that it has an all turns effect is strong. I think we're seeing more and more cards have this kind of effect that help interact on your opponent's turn, even though they have to kind of play into it, or put restrictions on what they can do during their turn. But then we also have like just enough Galgamons that are rookies. That is generally when you start seeing decks kind of get more relevant, is when you can just run all of the same name for rookies. So we do kind of have that for Galmon right now. Some people put like Betamons in and weren't running all Galmons, and not all the effects are fantastic for it, but the inheritables of gaining memory when your opponent adds an effect to their hand, it's only your turn once per turn, but if you make them draw, you get to gain memory, which is nice. Also getting the +1k, and then also you can return something. So, but in general, there's like a lot of combos you can do this to gain memory off a lot of these inheritables, and then we also have the burst mode, which is really, really cool. So when digivolving, which you can do the burst digivolve with specifically Thomas, you can't use Nikolai, which kind of stinks for it, but it does have when digivolving, return one of your opponent's Digimon to its owner's hand, then gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. This also puts cards into your opponent's hand by an effect, which means you get a lot of other triggers going on, including when attacking, your opponent has 9 or more cards in their hand. By returning random cards from their hand to the bottom of the deck, you can until they have 8, you get to unsuspend this. So you can kind of like, the idea of giving your opponent's cards, or some of these cards just straight up say make your opponent draw 1, which is kind of stinky, because there's also like this one. So, but like the idea that you can use these effects and then like put them down to a small hand size, and also since it's random, it's very good. So a bit of a combo deck. I kind of relate it to All Force a little bit because it is kind of like the idea you go up your stack and you play your tamers and you get your effects off your tamers, but it's a different flavor enough for it, and also just the fact that no All Force topped, which is kind of interesting too. But the fact that it also doesn't care about unsuspending, which I think All Force does get hit by Quartz and Bloom sometimes, but also neither of those decks top, so I don't know why I'm talking about them. But there we go there. We also do have the Full Moon Meteor Impact, which main return one of your opponent's Digimon to its owner's hand, then gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand, so you can make this cost very, cheap, and then the security is only returning the card. You don't get the memory. If that was the case, it'd be busted, but we don't get that, so... And we also have the new BT13, and just, I don't know, there's enough pieces, and again, in this line that you can run only Galgamon, which usually is very strong, and that's exactly what happened there, so... Congratulations to Chi for their first place finish here with Mirage. And then next up, we're going to talk about Blue Flare. And Blue Flare has been getting, I think, more and more popular as time's gone on. Obviously, they did get a bunch of EX4 cards that are pretty strong for it, including the Dual Tamer. And just honestly, having another Tamer that is treated as Kariha is fantastic for your copy of the Blazing Mem Boost, which is really nice. The fact that you have additional Blue Greymon so you can do your cross plays. I don't know, there's just so many decks in this game that if they had 2 copies of the same name, they'd be in a good spot. And we've seen that, like, there's some decks that, only having just 1 rookie for the line, even though like you probably would want to run all of the same rookie of the same name. That's kind of what Blue Flare has now, with all these copies of Greymon you have, Mailbird, even just an extra copy or 2 of like Metal Greymon, even though I'd say this one is strictly worse than the BT10 one. There's just a lot of good combo plays you get to do with it too. They're also running 1 copy of the Jumbo Gamemon, so card effect blocker, and then opponent's turn, when the opponent's Digimon attacks, you may play 1 level 5 or lower Digimon card from the Digimon's Devolution cards without paying its cost, which means you can play Metal Gray, and you can use Metal Gray's effect on play to prevent your opponent's cards from attacking, since you can do it with like the Digicross after the fact, since you're playing it, and there's just a lot of other effects. There's so many on plays with it, so it's an interesting add to it there. It is a little expensive. You have to Digivolve into 5 for it, but it's good to kind of pass to your opponent's turn and then get interaction afterwards. So nice little add. A couple people did put these Jumbo Gamemons in their list for the Blue Flare, which is cool. So anyways, this is a list here. Congratulations to Francisco for their finish on this one. And the next up, we have Matthew with their 8th place Machinedramon. And I think the rest of these are just singletons. Yeah, these are the singleton list after the fact. So not a lot of diversity in this event too. It was, again, only 123 players. This is also during the weekend of Gen Con. So I know that honestly there are a lot of high caliber players who were in person at Gen Con who couldn't, participate in these events. So I think that kind of splitting the player pool, kind of you see that kind of in that results too. But I do like Machinedramon. It's definitely a deck that is like kind of multicolored, but can get away with just going mono black, as it were. The fact that you get a little bit more ways to like set up, the fact that you have more time to set up, I think is really big for this deck. And we do have like the Chaosdramon X. There are some decks that just literally can't handle this once you get out to it, which is nice. Even just like regular Chaosdramon, which is really good. I think this deck is also really cheap, including the Machinedramon. I think this was something of like one of the more expensive cards for it, but especially since it got like the new Aandroidd reprint, I think this is a pretty cheap card for the deck too that helps you out there. And in general, I think this deck can be probably made for like under $60. Yeah, they're saying it's like $63 here, so pretty cheap for what it is. And the fact that hunters don't exist in the Ultimate Cup format due to them running multiple colors means that that's like the thing I think gatekeeps this deck from doing super duper well, is that hunters are moderately popular right now, and they have a way to remove your Chaosdramon, and it's very hard for that matchup. So the fact that you have more time to set up, the fact that you have like this really big wall at the end, I think Machinedramon is in a good spot. It is, I do think there are some ways that it can get stunned or you can't get the block, but you do get redirects with Analog Man. You're also only running 1 copy of Analog Man, which is a little bit wild to me. I think this is one of the better cards in the deck, so only running 1 copy of it I think is a bit wild, but I don't know. I do like this deck. I do like the idea that you can kind of add some custom ratios for what you really want to see and what you want to do for the deck. And congrats to Matthew for getting their top 8 finish there. So next up we have Neil with the only ShineGrey for this one. And honestly, this is looking pretty much similar to what we're seeing in the meta for ShineGrey, which is a little surprising, again, that this is, a deck that does really, really well in the current format, and we're not seeing it get first place or even, only 1 top 16 finish for it. So it could just be people, even though this is a dual color deck, all of the cards are pretty much multicolored, so being able to just run the deck as usual means that you don't have that much interaction with it. So it could just be like the player pool not realizing that ShineGrey is just full power essentially for this format, and you got to do pretty much everything you want to do. But we'll see when we get more Ultimate Cups. I think we get a lot more in September as well. But there's a lot of, obviously this deck is good. I don't have to say much about it. You have all these tamers. They're a little bit harder to interact with. The fact that you're able to do like a bunch of you can like turn the tide and kind of go OTK with enough setup, which is very strong, and kind of everything else with that. So this is a list there. I don't have much more to say about it. Congratulations to Neil for their finish. And to wrap it up, we have Josh sneak into the top 16 with their 16th place copy of Belphemon. And a Belphemon is also just a deck that is generically full powered in this format as well. It doesn't change much from BT13. The only difference is that some people play like Death X or play like the Omniswart, but I feel like those like rarely come up. So honestly, I would say this is one of the better decks for the format, and I do also think it's probably better than BLZX in this one, even though I think both can get the tops in these events. But it is something that can OTK. It does have like a lot of board presence and removal, and it is kind of difficult to interact with this deck at times. I do think like Blue Flare does have a good way to interact by giving the stun to the sleep mode, and then it wakes up and then it still has the stun on the next turn. Since it still can be targeted, it just doesn't get affected by it until until the end of your opponent's turn. So if you have an effect that can target this card and affects it until the end of your opponent's next turn, as soon as it goes over to your opponent's turn, it starts to be affected by it. So there's some cards where it like gives minus power for the turn into the end of your opponent's turn, so that would also affect this guy too. But I do think the deck is strong. I do like the Psychomon. Psychomon I think is good for Blue Flare though, since they can't do Digicross with they have to pay full cost for Digicross with this, which is nice. And again, sometimes this deck just sets up and is obnoxious, and I feel I have no way to win because 17k security attack +1 that gets to restand itself is a lot of checks all out of nowhere, which is good. So I also do like the Nidhogg. I've been seeing this more popular in these builds, and just the fact that you can use this to gain extra memory as the turn goes on, including on your opponent's turn, is very strong. So anyways, that is the list here. Congratulations to Josh for this finish. And that is really all that we have to talk about. Again, a lot of Mirage decks did the top in this event. If you guys want to check them all out, they are all on the website here on Eggman Events, as well as the Blue Flare. There's a good amount of variety for some of them for tech choices and stuff too, so I do highly recommend, especially like tamer choices. Some people only ran 6, some ran 8. That's and just kind of like which ones they kind of preferred more for those spots. So anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you guys hanging out and watching this one. Again, big thanks to Marco and Zach for the new intro animation. I hope you guys enjoy that too, and be on the lookout for more Digimon content, probably more Ultimate Cup format for the next couple weeks, because that's what we have in September, and then back to BT13 and the reboot set, and the reprint set rather, and everything else. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.